talking about day 10. If you don't have the book, Make Dollars and Cents, go get the book. Order it, Amazon.com, jmediapublishing.net. Go get it, jmediamarketplace.net. Go get the book. Grab the book. It's vital. This is critical. All right.
Very critical.
But today we are talking about day 10, alignment. Alignment, think about it. One time I used to have in the 90s, I had a 1977 Cutlass Supreme.
Yes, sir. Soul machine.
And my grandfather put new tires on it. I got in the car, drove to Newport News, the car wobbling like every time I try to get above 50. I'm like, what's going on? Why am I car? I'm like, he just put new tires on it. I didn't really know about cars and what was going on. That was my first car. Okay. So I called him. I was like, Daddy, every time I try to go, above 50, my car started wobbling real bad. I don't know what's wrong. He said, oh, gotta balance those tires. Gotta balance the tires. So things weren't in alignment, so they couldn't function properly. Right. So that's what I was thinking about, with this chapter. Even though I didn't mention that example, but that's what comes to my mind is alignment. Because if I kept those tires out of balance like that, unrotated like that, then they pull the whole alignment of the car off. So then not only do I gotta get the tires rotated and in balance, but I gotta get an alignment on the car. So just when one thing is out of whack, and you pull a lot of things out of whack. So what I was talking about too in the book is you saying, talking about all these hopes and dreams that you have, but you aren't doing anything to accomplish those. So, I want more money, but I don't do anything to get any more money. I don't acquire any more skills. I'm not reading any books. I'm not even getting up off the couch barely to go and check and see anything. I have my phone in my hand all the time, but I'm not researching anything. I'm not searching anything, So I'm out of alignment. And I remember, riding around as a little kid, my grandmother would take us through different neighborhoods just to look at the houses, Be like, man, Mama, why we don't have one of them houses? She's like, because I can't afford that right now. She said, but y'all gonna be able to, y'all gonna do things like that. So that's why I take y'all around and show y'all things. I take y'all places. My mother always took us to restaurants to teach us how, basically to eat in public, all those kind of things. She'd take us to different playgrounds in different neighborhoods just for the experience, So in that sense, she was in alignment. But, in another sense, it's like certain things weren't in alignment in my life, in her life, in anybody's life. So what I'm saying is don't just talk about the dream, get up and do it. Get up and do something, be working towards something. It may not happen in one day, may not happen overnight, but the many days and the many nights put together, then you'll see things begin to happen. So that's my little
I made a note here because I like this chapter here. Yeah, what I said was my notes, dreams cost you nothing. They don't cost you nothing to dream. It's all free. But when you wake up, you got to work to make your dream a reality. You have to work at it. The fear, though, of working and failing kills ambition to pursue your dream. How many people we know that, right? Great idea. I've heard a lot of great ideas basically in the wrong environments. Man, we ought to do this, or I ought to do that. It sounds crazy, but it's like, you know what? I actually think that could work. But the person who came up with the idea, he was just talking out loud. And for whatever reason, that individual wasn't willing to take the next step to figure things out, to engage. Maybe they didn't believe, maybe they were talking. But I think this fear of failing is an instantaneous kill switch to ambition and pursuing those dreams. You never know what you can accomplish unless you try. Right? And I think this chapter touches on that because when we talk about things being out of alignment, I like to say it just don't make no sense. Right? So the example you gave about riding around and looking at the big houses and all that other stuff, I don't think we ask the question how we can get it.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can ask mom and dad why you don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty easy question. I ain't
Mm-hmm.
making that kind of money.
Mm-hmm.
But mom, dad, how do I get that?
Right.
What do I need to
Right.
do?
Right.
And I don't know if there is a answer that at that time we really would have understood because the folks around us didn't have money.
Mm-hmm.
Now today we could tell our kids, "Oh, you want that? Okay, this is what we got to do. We got to sit out, manage your money, the discipline we always talk about, get a tangible skill that translates into income where you can build wealth. You can have all of those trappings that come with it. But at that time, right, when we use that kid that Chevy Chevette, whatever, riding
Mm-hmm.
around, putting, the only answer you really was going to get from mom and dad was, I don't have the money, I don't have that kind of job. But it never went to the next question. Well, how can I get that?
Mm-hmm.
And once we get those answers, then it becomes, do you have the courage to take the next step to do it?
Mm-hmm. And I think looking at that, because my grandmothers used to be like domestic workers, so they would clean rich people's houses.
Mm-hmm.
They also did they were CNAs, so they were like the nursing assistants. So they got to work once again with a lot of wealthy people. I'm talking about extreme wealth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
owning like construction companies and and banks and all kinds of stuff like that. Like doctors even. Like they worked with them. So I would hear, like, oh, what do they do? What do they do? Kind of thing, because that would be, oh, doctor this, doctor that, or Mrs. this, Mr. that, Mr. that. They own all these houses right here, like not just the house they live in, but they own like the whole lot of houses.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
or their
yeah,
family built those and they passed them on to the next generation. And even now, one of my nephew goes to Flint Hill. So, when I get invited to the graduation parties and stuff like that, or
yeah.
the beginning of summer party or the end of summer party that these people have,
Right,
it's like, wow. Like, well,
right.
what did they do? And some
Yeah,
of them
yeah,
are involved in tech, and different just different industries, but they're not just at the entry level. Like they're starting
right,
things and developing things and they're actually well connected, you know.
right.
Some connected to the Reagans even, and some connected to the Obamas. Like I'm still
Mm-hmm.
meeting people, that are connected to these people. So it is really fascinating, stuff.
Right,
Fascinating
right,
stuff.
right.
Um, but this
Hey,
thing about
let me ask you
Mhm,
something.
mhm,
And I just thought of something you said,
mhm,
how our grandparents and elders, the jobs they had,
mhm,
working as domestics for
mhm,
wealthy people. Maybe
mhm,
they did janitorial work in buildings where it was high level government
mhm,
officials and
mhm,
politicians. And they would come back and tell people not just what they do, but who they work for. Did
mhm.
you ever sense that there was this sort of weird pride in working for people at that high level? It was almost, I don't want to say they were bragging. That's kind of harsh to say they were bragging, but it was like, man, today I did this in this building and it's a 5-star general. We clean. And it was like, well, are you proud of that? Like it was like a weird sense. Same thing,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
Uh, Down in Suffolk, where my family at, one of the guys he had worked some high up for Plants Peanut. Plants Peanut used to be headquartered down in Suffolk, one of their main plants.
Can you
But
repeat what you said? Because your sound went out.
oh my bad, yeah, I had down in Suffolk, Virginia, where my family at. We had relatives that worked for Plants Peanuts and
Mhm,
did work down there, and they would always talk about their encounters with the higher ups within plants,
mhm,
and it was almost as if they were bragging
mhm.
about who they worked for. There was like this pride, not that they worked for planners, but that they met
Right,
and worked
right,
for the senior guy.
right.
And to your point, I could see if that was his mentor.
Right.
But it was just the fact that I'm in the room or in the space where he's at. You
Mhm,
you don't know who I work for. I work for whatever.
mhm.
And I always thought about that when you mentioned that thing about being a domestic and, being a CNA and nursing, at these nursing homes for these wealthy people, they would tell you this stuff. But did you get the sense that there was some sort of pride in
Just a
that?
little bit, just a little
Right,
bit. But on the other hand, the opposite hand of that is I felt like we as the kids would be excited about it, when they would tell us what they did.
right,
But going to work with them is like, oh, I want to clean up rich people's houses. Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. And
right.
I remember the conversations, even my aunt was like, no, no,
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Yeah,
y'all gonna do better. Y'all gonna do
right,
better.
right,
And my
right.
grandmother, my mother's mother, Coetta, always had that conversation. Like, no,
Yeah,
y'all gonna do
yeah.
better. Like, no, all the
See,
time.
my mother always tells this story. When she
Hmm.
came up here to DC, she worked for a rich Jewish family. He was a lawyer, a high-powered attorney. I forgot who he was, but he was a high. And she always tells this story, and it
Hmm.
was like this fascination that she was a nanny for their kids in '68 or whatever it was. She came up here, and in her subconscious, it was almost as if like she was not so much proud of being a nanny, but
Hmm.
proud that she worked as a nanny for this high-powered guy
Hmm.
that wanted her and her family wanted to take her to Israel with them.
Right.
And I always thought that there was some sort of weird subconscious pride that you got not just have a job, but you're working for someone of prominence
Right.
and you want to share that with people.
Right.
And like I said, when you were talking about like when you're working with them, what did you learn?
Right.
And
Right.
I don't know if they learned at that time, they weren't
Yeah.
open,
That's
right?
major.
And
That's
we
major.
see a lot of that today now, right? Probably, right? We know some folks who work in high power
Hmm.
positions and they're quick to tell you who they work for,
Hmm.
but that's as far as it goes. And it's like, well, are you trying to impress me because you work for them? Like, what
Right.
is that? And I
Right.
think there's some sort of subconscious pride when we say that stuff, and we're not taking it to the next level. So, okay, we worked there. Now, how can we absorb some information to build on that?
Hmm. And major points, major points.
Right,
Once again, being solution oriented instead of focusing on, what the problem is. Identify, what the issue was or what the mistake was, but
right,
solution now. What did I learn from that environment? Even if it doesn't fulfill itself in my life, am I passing this down to my children?
mm-hmm.
Am I giving them this information? Am I giving them this nugget? One movie I did or series I did watch, Lupin on I think it's on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Dope. That's all I can say about it. That thing was dope.
Yeah,
The dude was a immigrant to I think they were in France, but
mm-hmm.
the Black Pan family was from I think like Ghana, Nigeria, some African country though.
Right,
And the father was given a book from his boss by his boss. His boss had this extensive library. He kind of gave it to him to me. No, I think father actually wound up stealing the book from
mm-hmm.
but he applied what was in the book to his life and passed that down to his son. And so he became like this basically jewel thief. He can
Right,
steal anything like in your face while you looking at him. He can steal it.
right,
But I was just looking at that like, wow, like if that had been, a real tangible, I mean, it was definitely tangible, but just like a legal skill that he had passed down to his son, because now his son's life is different, in
right, right,
every way. And so he's not having to go into these people's houses and work for them, and
right.
spoken to in very condescending tones and all those kind of things.
You know what? You just hit on something right there.
Mhm.
Lupin got this book passed down.
Mhm.
He used it to build something and learn
Mhm. Mhm.
for criminal enterprise, right?
Mhm.
Is that something that's common in our community? The
Um,
hustling,
the
right?
hustling, but to me, it's not on a level where, I know a lot of rappers from the 80s and the 90s, like they used theirs, they leveraged what they had to build something else.
But I'm talking about at the ground level because we
But,
talk about kids wanting to learn how to build wealth.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
They're not latching on to the legitimate
skill.
Exactly. It's the illegitimate criminal stuff that they can see, they can touch, they can feel. Right. That's easily passed down. They pick up on it and run with it. But the legitimate channels for income, right? Legal. Let's say legal. I hate to use the word legitimate. They're both legitimate. Just one's legal, one's not, right? Just in plain talk. But
you froze. Thank you back.
Okay. Yeah. But what I found is that the illegal channels, the kids pick up on that stuff and are willing to learn that more so than the legal channels. And I think because of the quick money, the quick turnaround. Not to say it's any easier, right? But that's what it appears to me. When you said that, it really struck a chord with me. Because we're talking about the kids wanting to learn and pick up things and wanting to study and all of that. But if it's something, even on the web, right? They're willing to learn something on the web that's not legal and they're cutting corners. But the legitimate avenues of making money, that stuff is not sexy, boring, exciting.
Right, exactly. But you'll hear like a lot of wealthy people say that building wealth is not sexy. It's not. It is actually boring.
It's boring.
Right? But if you stick to that unsexiness, to the boring, you'll see that over time that you're building something legally and legitimately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even in here in this alignment, I think I was saying that your children, they hear you, they see what you're doing, and more than likely they're going to duplicate your efforts and whatever it is that you're doing. Whether something is legal and legitimate or something is illegal and or illegitimate, right? They're going to duplicate your efforts. So, what do you want them to be in alignment with? What do you yourself want to be in alignment with? Like, not here, like we're saying, like, yes, these things happen you can build something that's not legal, but we're not promoting that. We're talking about your efforts will be duplicated. That's the point of that, right? And then we're saying on the other hand here, so do something constructive. Be in alignment with something that's constructive, something that's building for your children. Because once again, we're trying to just change the paradigm. Going from everybody wanting to have a horror story to everybody like, nah, we built this. We worked and we built this.
Exactly.
We passed it on to the second and third and the fourth and to all the generations afterwards.